After 40 years of teaching music, retirement was supposed to be peaceful. Instead, it was silent. Parkinson's disease took his steady hands, his clear speech, his independence, but it couldn't take his music. On Nashville street corners, 68-year-old Robert played guitar with hands that shouldn't be able to, and Taylor Swift noticed. Robert Mitchell had been a music teacher for 40 years. Not the kind who just teaches scales and collects a paycheck. The kind who stays after school to help struggling students, who buys instruments for kids whose families can't afford them, who shows up to every single recital, concert, and performance, even the bad ones, especially the bad ones, because he knows that showing up matters. For 4 decades, Robert taught middle school music in Franklin, Tennessee. He taught kids who went on to become professional musicians, kids who never touched an instrument again after 8th grade, but remembered Mr. Mitchell as the teacher who believed in them. Kids who struggled with everything else, but found something they were good at in his music room. He taught guitar, piano, drums, voice. He directed the school choir, the jazz band, the spring musical. He wrote arrangements so every kid could have a part, even the ones who could barely carry a tune. He spent his own money on sheet music and guitar strings and drumsticks because the school budget never stretched far enough. Robert loved teaching, but by the time he was 65, he was exhausted. 40 years of early mornings and after-school rehearsals and weekend competitions. 40 years of administrative meetings and budget cuts and fighting to keep the music program funded. He'd earned retirement. His wife Linda had retired 2 years earlier from nursing. They had plans, travel, gardening, finally having time to just be together without the constant demands of teaching. Robert retired in June 2021, right after the school year ended. His students threw him a surprise party. Former students came back to thank him. He cried through the whole thing. "Retirement's going to be great," he told Linda on the drive home. Finally time to relax. But retirement wasn't great. It was quiet, too quiet. For 40 years, Robert's life had been full of noise. Good noise. Kids practicing. Concerts. The controlled chaos of 30 teenagers trying to learn Beethoven. Now his days were silent. He'd wake up with nowhere to be. No rehearsals to run. No students who needed him. Linda noticed he was struggling. "You could volunteer," she suggested. "Teach private lessons. Join a band." Robert tried. He reached out to a few students about private lessons, but his hands had started shaking. Just a little at first, a tremor in his right hand. When he tried to demonstrate a chord, he dropped his coffee cup one morning, just slipped right out of his hand. His handwriting got messier. His speech started slurring slightly. By January 2022, 7 months into retirement, Robert had a diagnosis: Parkinson's disease. The neurologist was matter-of-fact about it. "It's progressive. The tremors will get worse. Your motor control will decline. Your speech will be affected. There's no cure, but medication can help manage symptoms." Robert sat in that doctor's office and felt something break inside him. 40 years of using his hands to teach music. 40 years of precise finger placement on guitar frets, of demonstrating piano technique, of conducting with clear, steady movements. And now his hands wouldn't stop shaking. The medication helped, but not enough. His tremors got worse. His right hand shook so badly he couldn't button his own shirt, couldn't hold a pen to write, couldn't feed himself without spilling. His speech got more slurred. People had to ask him to repeat himself. His body would freeze sometimes, Just stop responding to what his brain was telling it to do. The worst part wasn't the physical symptoms. The worst part was the silence. Robert had spent 40 years making music with students, and now he couldn't even make music by himself. His hands shook too much to play guitar, too much to play piano. Music, the thing that had defined his entire adult life, was gone. Linda did everything she could. She buttoned his shirts, cut his food, spoke for him when his words wouldn't come, but she couldn't give him back his music. By summer 2022, Robert was depressed, really depressed. The kind where getting out of bed felt pointless. What was he now, if he couldn't teach and couldn't play music? Just a guy with shaking hands waiting for the disease to get worse. One afternoon, Linda found him in the garage, holding his old acoustic guitar, the one he'd had since college. He was just holding it, not playing, tears running down his face. "I can't do it anymore," Robert said. "My hands won't work." "Try anyway," Linda said gently. "So mess it up. Who cares? It's just us here." So Robert tried. He put his trembling hands on the guitar strings, positioned his shaking fingers on the frets, took a breath, and started playing Blackbird by the Beatles, a song he'd taught 1,000 students over 40 years, and something impossible happened. His hands went still, not completely. There was still a slight tremor, but the violent shaking that made it impossible to hold a coffee cup, gone. His fingers found the frets with muscle memory so deep it bypassed whatever Parkinson's was doing to his brain. The music came out clear, a little slower than it used to be, but clear. Robert played the whole song. When he finished, he looked at his hands in disbelief. "They stopped shaking," he said. Linda was crying. "Play another one." He played "Here Comes the Sun," then "Yesterday," then "Let It Be." Song after song, his hands stayed steady. The moment he stopped playing, the tremors came back. But while he was playing, his hands remembered what to do. It's actually a real medical phenomenon. Music can temporarily override Parkinson's motor symptoms. Something about the way music engages the brain, the rhythm, the muscle memory, the emotional connection, can create pathways around the damaged parts. Neurologists don't fully understand why, but it's documented. Music therapy is used for Parkinson's patients for exactly this reason. Robert had accidentally discovered his own therapy. After that day, Robert played guitar every day. It was the only time he felt like himself. The only time his body did what he asked it to. He played all the songs he'd taught over 40 years. Beatles songs, folk songs, classical pieces arranged for guitar. Sometimes Linda would sit and listen. Sometimes he'd play for hours alone in the garage. But it wasn't enough. Playing alone in a garage wasn't the same as making music with other people. Wasn't the same as teaching. Robert looked at her like she was crazy. "I'm 68 years old with Parkinson's disease. I'm not a busker. Why not? You need an audience. Music isn't meant to be played alone. And you've been shut in this house for a year. Get out. Play for people." So in October 2023, Robert drove to downtown Nashville, found a corner near Broadway, and set up. He put out his guitar case for tips, not because he needed the money, but because that's what buskers do, and he started playing. People walked past. Some stopped to listen. Most didn't. But that wasn't the point. The point was that Robert was making music again, in public, for an audience. The way music was meant to be made. He went back every Wednesday and Saturday. Same corner, same guitar, playing Beatles covers and folk songs, and occasionally Taylor Swift, because everyone in Nashville played Taylor Swift. Other street musicians got to know him. "That's Robert," they'd tell newcomers. Taught music for 40 years. Has Parkinson's. Can't hold a cup steady, but plays guitar like he's 30. One of the younger musicians asked him about it. How do you do that? I see your hands shaking when you're not playing, but then you pick up the guitar, and they just stop. Music's stronger than Parkinson's, Robert said simply. At least for a little while. It became his routine. Retirement wasn't silent anymore. Twice a week, he made music. Met people, felt useful again. The tips were decent. Enough to donate to the school music program he'd retired from. But mostly, he just needed to play. It was a Wednesday in March 2024, when Taylor Swift walked past. Robert was playing Love Story, not his favorite Taylor song, but it was popular with tourists, and he'd learned it for his students back when it first came out. He had his eyes closed, focused on keeping his hands steady, when he heard someone sit down on the bench next to his setup. When he finished the song and opened his eyes, there was a woman in a baseball cap and sunglasses sitting there. She looked familiar, but Robert's eyesight wasn't great anymore, and he didn't think much of it. That was beautiful, she said. Thank you, Robert said. His speech was slurred. It always was these days, but he could tell she understood him. How long have you been playing? She asked. 50 years, Robert said. Taught music for 40 of them. You taught? The woman seemed genuinely interested. Middle school. Just retired a few years ago. Why are you playing on the street? Not judgmental. Just curious. Robert held up his shaking right hand. Parkinson's. Can't do much anymore, but I can still play. Don't know why. Doesn't make medical sense. But when I pick up the guitar, my hands remember. The woman pulled off her sunglasses. Can you play another song? Robert looked at her face and nearly dropped his guitar. Taylor Swift was sitting on a bench on a Nashville street corner, asking him to play another song. I am, she said, with a smile. And I really want to hear you play again. That thing you said about your hands remembering, I want to see it. So Robert played Anti-Hero. His hands were shaking worse now because he was nervous, but the moment he started playing, they steadied. That night, Robert stood on the stage at Bridgestone Arena. His hands were shaking. His knees were weak. He could barely speak clearly enough for the microphone. But when Taylor handed him a guitar and they started playing Love Story together, his hands went still. 70,000 people watched a 68-year-old man with Parkinson's disease play guitar with steady hands. Taylor told them his story, 40 years of teaching, the diagnosis, the tremors, the medical miracle of music overriding disease. She told them that music isn't just art. It's medicine. It's healing. It's proof that some things are stronger than disease. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. Robert cried through all of it. After the show, Taylor did what Taylor does. She connected Robert with Parkinson's research organizations. She made a significant donation to the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's research in Robert's name. She arranged for him to speak at music therapy conferences about his experience. But more than that, she gave him back his purpose. Robert started teaching again, not in a classroom. Through a program Taylor helped fund, he teaches adaptive music to people with Parkinson's and other movement disorders, shows them that music can give them back control, even temporarily. Even when everything else is shaking, music can make you steady. Today Robert is 69 years old. His Parkinson's is worse. His medication has been adjusted multiple times. There are days he can't leave the house because his body won't cooperate. But twice a week, he still plays guitar. Sometimes on Nashville streets. Sometimes at the community center teaching adaptive music. sometimes just in his garage for Linda, because for those hours when his hands are on the guitar strings, Robert isn't a Parkinson's patient. He isn't a disabled retiree. He's a musician, a teacher, a man whose hands remember what his brain has partially forgotten. The video of Robert playing with Taylor has been viewed over 50 million times, but that's not why it matters. It matters because thousands of people with Parkinson's saw it and thought, maybe I could still make music too. It matters because music therapy programs for movement disorders got funding they desperately needed. It matters because people started understanding that music isn't just entertainment, it's medicine. Robert's retirement isn't silent anymore. It's full of music, full of students learning that their disease doesn't define them, full of the same purpose that drove him for 40 years in that middle school music room, showing people that music is powerful enough to give you back what everything else has taken. Parkinson's took a lot from me, Robert says when he tells his story. My steady hands, my clear speech, my independence. But it couldn't take my music, because music is stronger. Music remembers when my body forgets. Music gives me back my hands, even if it's just for a little while. That's not just inspiring. That's science. That's proof that music doesn't just move us emotionally. Sometimes it literally moves us when nothing else can. If this story reminds you that music is medicine, that it's never too late, that disease doesn't get to write the end of your story, share it. Robert's playing guitar right now, teaching students who thought Parkinson's meant giving up music, proving that tremors don't get the final word. Music does.